I actually have a computer that actually has Audacity on it, but I didn't want to bring two laptops because I think it's a pain to use anything else on. It's a tablet. Okay, so I pull over one thing. I closed my thing that I had open. Oops. Okay, so you've mentioned it a little bit, and we're obviously in context talking about this. We're both in my office at Wichita State. You're an MFA student.
I am.
Where did writing of Mask of Shadow, writing or getting into this querying of books and stuff, where did that and the getting into the MFA, where did those fit timeline-wise?
I applied to MFA programs before Mask of Shadows sold, and then found out Mask of Shadows and the sequel sold right after I accepted a position here. So all of my editing sort of happened my first and second year, and it was a very busy time with very little sleep. But yeah.
What's it been like? I know it's been, obviously, like you were saying, it's busy and hard to sleep and things. From a writing perspective, how has being an MFA, has that had an effect on your writing of your fantasy?
I mean, I think my writing in general is much better technically. Just because I'm reading more variations of things and writing more, so that's always good. I tried to come into the MFA and avoid writing fantasy and to write other things and to write short fiction, just so that I could get that variation in my education. So keeping it separate seemed to work really well, because then I wouldn't cross over any of my style between my books and my work here. But I don't know, now that my thesis, I just submitted it, it's weird.
Yeah.
But keeping it separate worked for me.
Yeah. And you're on your way out.
This is also a pretty literary fiction MFA.
Yeah.
It's not like a MFA for children's literature or YA.
Some MFAs are more open to genre experimentation, some aren't. Which not to say that the instructors here are as militant as other MFAs
are. No, they're very nice about it. And
so there is room for that. But yeah, no, it's interesting making that conscious separation. And it's one that I think is sometimes surprising to people when they find out, when they come here and they find out that you've written this book and you're in the MFA program. From both ends, I've heard people who know you as an author, those of you who know you as an MFA, and they're kind of like, because you don't hear about it as much.
I will say it's weird that people talk about me. I also discovered after I came here that I don't talk about being an author enough, because I should be marketing myself. But I think my first semester I tried to not mention it because I didn't want to bring it up, and I'm not great with words in person. I usually script out things I say because I do long pauses like that as I try to think of things, and I'm not always up on catching like sarcasm. So I tried to script things. So I think I just tried to not say anything my first semester at all, so I didn't accidentally come off as a dick.
Yeah. You had any luck on the literary side of things, getting any short work or things published?
Don't tell any of our professors, but I haven't tried.
That's fair. Well, then that's the thing, is you've already got a bunch of irons in a different fire.
Yeah, I was
I'm not surprised.
I could try this, or I could take a nap.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll take a nap, and then I'll actually be awake for class.
Yeah. But, you know, like I said, I've had workshop with Linsey. I've been really lucky. She's
Dan's also really great.
Thank you. But I didn't bring her on just to do that. I swear. No.
He paid me.
She didn't write anything. This is all just a paid thing. What would you, but with all that in mind, even if someone isn't accidentally publishing, like you sort of found yourself doing, Do you think that an MFA would be something that someone who wants to write what you're getting published right now, do you think an MFA might be beneficial?
It depends a lot on them.
Mm-hmm.
I think my evergreen advice for all graduate work is, if it's free, yes. If it's not, no.
Yeah.
And then after you've decided if it's free or not, decide if it's going to be beneficial to you based on your background. Like, I didn't study any English in undergrad, and so I was like, great, I'll read all those books I didn't read these 3 years. Decide if you wanted to teach. I decided to try that out because I enjoyed tutoring biology back in the day. If you have written before, or like technical things, and you can study on your own, and you know how to read a book for literary criticism and not just pleasure, so that you can analyze it and digest it and use what you've learned for your own writing, no matter what that book is or what your writing is, I don't think it's necessary or useful necessarily. So it's going to depend a lot on how that person knows how well they can do their own self-study, I guess.
And you do make a lot of connections, which is less important though, because as Linsey mentioned, you got your big connection via Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter saved me.
So, that's the new frontier publishing, is people connecting through things like NaNoWriMo and social media, and not like just meeting at like AWP or something.
I want to say like still 98% of books are from the slush pile and general querying, and then every now and then it's like Twitter, or I know one person who was at a bar at a conference and met their agent because it sat next to him, which was the 0.05% chance of that happening, but it did. So yeah, MFAs also are connections, and you meet other writers, and you're sort of in that world for 2 or 3 years, or however long it is if you do a residence MFA. So if you want to be in the world and just be surrounded by other writers and go to workshop every week and talk to people about writing and then never shut up about writing, an MFA is great.
Yeah, it's kind of like being a writing monk.
Yeah, or you can do a low residency if you're like, I need this education, but I also need to have a job and not live wherever the MFA is. Then do it.
Yeah. So, you're finishing your thesis up. Do you have any plans on trying to get your thesis published?
No.
No?
I'll talk about my thesis. It's about 3 high schoolers playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes. And
the terrible things in their lives and how they deal with it via sort of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. But it's more just an exercise and a very long exercise at this point.
Yeah,
than
it's
anything.
basically a very long writing exercise. I wrote it in present tense, which is not a tense I ever write in. 3 different points of view, which was fun and weird. It's a novella, or several short stories that are all connected. I think it's a novella. So writing something on such a smaller scale was a good exercise.
Yeah.
I might rewrite it in the future, but as it is now, I don't think it's something I would publish just because it's so different from what my established brand is.
Yeah.
And also really dark.
Yeah. I think I believe I've read some of it, haven't I? Or at least drafts of it.
I did drafts of it in workshop.
Literary fiction goes to dark places.
Yeah.
That even dark fantasy doesn't go.
Well, I feel like the difference is in real life, you don't always get to be the hero.
That's true.
And you don't always win. In fantasy, you almost always can be the hero, and you almost always can win. So, like, my goal of fantasy is to write stories I needed as a kid, where I got to defeat my real life monsters in a fantasy world because you couldn't defeat them in real life. Whereas in my thesis, you can defeat them in Dungeons and Dragons, but real life's a lot harder.
Yeah. It's a fascinating premise. What are your plans once you finish up this semester? Other than write your ass off on things.
Write my ass off. Actually, how they probably do some short fiction for fantasy
Mm-hmm.
and science fiction and stuff like that. Start writing more than one book at a time,
Mm-hmm.
so that I'm not always just in a weird headspace when I'm writing them. That's it.
So you're kind of gonna give full-time writing a go.
Yeah, I'm gonna give full-time writing a go. I always forget I'm not a full-time writer now, and that I'm in school, but very much am.
And then when you're an MFA, the line's already blurry, let alone when you have when you're publishing novels.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give full-time writing a go.
That's very cool. I mean, that's rare.
I'm just gonna shrug.
We don't meet.
My
We don't have a lot of guests who do that. But that's kind of the
I'm very
quote unquote the dream
in that
for
I'm
a lot
in
of people.
Place right now where I can do that. Not that writing pays a lot. That's not why it is.
Oh yeah, no. Our last episode we talked about the pay for writers. Whew.
Yeah, no, my partner makes money, and we both made a deal that we would both try to do things, and if it didn't work in 3 years, we'd go back to our terrible jobs. So saved up a bunch of money, and now I'm in a place where I can do that.
That's good. And hey, with an MFA, you can always teach.
Yeah, and then I can always hop back into teaching, hopefully.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned a couple times, you've mentioned the influence that tabletop gaming has had on your writing, both your first terrible book, in your words,
I will not take offense.
Your thesis. So how does that did that affect your writing, even your published work, how you write, how you think about your writing and your books?
I think so I'm a really big fan of side characters in media, and I think it sort of reinforced that affection for side characters, because when you're in a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, unlike when you're reading a book, you don't know the motivations of the people you're playing with all the time. So you sort of have a bunch of characters with different motivations working together, and motivations is one of working on motivations and making sure that every character is their own story is a big thing in writing. So I think having a group in which everyone is very much their own character, but they're in one story, can help figure out how to write multiple characters and make sure that all your side characters have their own deal going on while the main character does their thing. Also world building, just lots of weird stuff in Dungeons & Dragons. Lots of weird world building.
Yeah.
That gets you really primed for original weird world building.
Yeah.
Magic system in Dungeons & Dragons, definitely easier.
Oh yeah.
Wish I could just steal that. But yeah, it's...
And on the flip of that, does being a fantasy author, working in fantasy, does that give you any sort of...
No. So I'm on a podcast called Spell Check, where a bunch of young adult authors play Dungeons & Dragons poorly. And I'm not great at improvisation, which is weird because I did theater in high school and I feel like I should be better at it. But writing has made me great at creating a tragic backstory with a bunch of possibilities, and it's done nothing for my improvisational abilities when recording Spell Check. So mostly it's just me going, I wish I could just write this out and edit it a few times instead of spouting it off in 5 seconds.
So how did Spell Check, how did that come together? How did you get... it's a very unique premise, having all YA fantasy authors.
Margaret Owens, whose book comes out this year called The Merciful Crow. It's a young adult fantasy novel. It's very good. A few chapters into it. She just said on Twitter one day, hey, would anyone like to do a D&D thing with me? And I went, I will do this with you. And then some other people responded. So right now the people in it are L.L. McKinney, who wrote A Blade So Black, and the sequel comes out this year, I think.